right. Good evening to some people who are GEMS members and some people who took SIPS Reflex a couple of weeks ago. And thank you, Jodi, for being here. We're going to be able to just chat a little bit more about the reflexes and about some of the exercises that go with them, which we didn't have the time to launch into as deeply as some of us wanted to during class. So thank you. And you can go ahead. I'm going to just let people in and answer any questions in the chat or anything like that.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Thank you, Hannah. You get to do all the technology because I got nothing. I don't even know. Like I can put everybody on gallery and that's where I stay. So we're good. I'm Jodi. I'm from Kansas, here in the US. And I've been practicing the Moscatova method and specifically reflex integration work for about 12 years. And I'm a trained physical therapist, but of course we all kind of get into the question of, I want to go more, I want to go deeper. Why isn't the things that I've been trained in, why aren't they helping? So, I got through PT school, thought I knew a lot, and no, I don't. And so then you keep training and keep doing. And so that's how I got into reflex integration work. I'm a course specialist with Dr. Moscatova and her sensory motor neurological reflex integration. I'm also certified in the RMTI, Rhythmic Movement Training International, which is through Maura Dempsey as well. But I love that now that there's like this marriage of my love with energy work and also the reflex work. I think I asked maybe Alexis, I don't know, probably every 6 months to a year, when is reflex coming? Or, hey, I need to know this point, because I think it'll really, really help me as I'm working on the integration through this route. And so I thought maybe real fast is, I don't know where people are at with, sometimes reflex integration work gets thrown out, but nobody really knows what it is. I don't know what camps people are coming from, or if they have clients that do MNRI or DMI or RMT, or like they just throw that. Does anybody have stuff like that? Or is it, meh, it's just, hey, there's these reflexes. Well, what's been happening around like the US and also internationally is that there's this really big push for reflex integration outside of just the traditional therapies, where you're educating the brainstem. And with Moscatova, what you're doing, just like we talked about with the SIPS work, is we're educating the sensory pathway, letting the brain interpret for that motor response. And so specifically with Moscatova method, we are doing deep sensory stimulation to help to educate those pathways, to really help with that myelination. And we do the exercises like Alexis talked about in the course, where she's like, people don't do the exercises. You're supposed to do the Galant reflex 5 days a week. On top of that, the Babinski reflex. You're supposed to do this entire home program, and it's very, very overwhelming. And there's not a lot of carryover with families, or they try, but they most of the time they have medically complex kids that, well, how are you supposed to fit this in between my feeding therapy, my G-tube scheduling, like all of these different stuff. And then you're supposed to go home and also do like a 45-minute reflex program as well. It's really, really hard unless you have this dedicated approach. So that's, it is, I feel like there's things that could improve, but I was telling Alexis before a lot of people got in here, there's kind of a core group, or well, there's people that come with the reflex in the reflex integration world, specifically Moscatova, and we'll do intensives. So like we'll go and we'll do conferences. And so a person will get bombarded with 25 to 30 hours of reflexive work, whether we're talking to the skin or the tendon guard, like one reflex for an entire hour, really, really educating. And then they go to another mat table. And so like 6 hours of this work for 5 to 6 days. And you see these huge improvements and these huge gains. But so that's how reflex work is kind of really what people are doing a lot with it now. So yeah, that's what I do. Like, so I'll fly to Michigan or New Jersey or Orlando to go to those conferences and do the reflex work. But I like to like sneak in my SIPS work because suddenly muscles will open up and relax. And I'm not, I can get in trouble for it though, though, because they're like, it's not reflex work. And I'm like, but it matters because it's the whole, we're not hitting the whole picture. Um, but uh but just understanding that, you know, even if you hold like so I think is gallant, this is what I've been finding since I've been doing these reflex points and creating the marriage with sips work and the Moscatova method, or just reflexive work in general. I shouldn't just name the one, but it's a lot of it. If I hold over that, yeah, the it's lung 3. So like right here, right? Am I could be wrong. No, isn't that right? Yeah. Um all of the sudden I'll be working on the gallant reflex and the body will move from a protective state to a more educating state. The whole muscle system will relax. And so, yeah, if I'm just here, if my intention is also the energy at the same time as the reflex integration work, it's beautiful. Um, so there's my, hey, how do I put these two together? Or I'll do um, a protocol. I'll see what the system needs and then help the body. Okay, what else? What are the reflexes it needs today? And then we'll muscle test. And then the reflexes then I give actively really stick with the system. They're more accepting. They're not fighting the work I want to put into their system. And the session flows so much better. Anyway, did you guys have specific questions on some of the reflexes? I know that when we went through the class, it went so quickly. Do you just want me to go through some of the reflexes and we just kind of talk about them? Is that like some of the big ones? Sure. Why not? One thing that I talk to people that like to me, reflex work is like it's a pile of spaghetti. I mean that in a really kind way. Like when you're working on the gallant, so gallant reflex. I wish I had a infant or a baby doll or something here, but when you're stroking down the back side of on the side of the erector spinae, and the body goes into this lateral side bend, you're working on head writing, you're working on the tympanic membrane, and you're releasing auditory sensitivity. So you're not just working on this one side, you're working on head writing, you're working on visual stabilization, you're working on that auditory processing to the left side. And then when we're working on reflexes, you don't just you want regulation. So sometimes kids love to go into this gallant here on this left side, and then they only go into extension here on the right side because that's all they know. They don't understand that it's both. You have to have symmetry and regulation of the reflexes. So yeah, so I don't know. So if we start with gallant, I don't know, like in infancy, bladder meridian is tied to yeah, I really think that's like, sorry, I'm like talking at the same time. Alexis, shoot your comment. I really think of it as linking to bladder meridian as well. Do you tie it to the energy like that? Yes. Yeah. And even like we talked about, like with Babinski, like you look at where the sensory stimulus and you realize what all of those what impacts or where the line of the meridian is. Yeah. So like you said, it's bladder meridian. And so when a person has bedwetting issues or like night enuresis or bowel and bladder incontinence, we work gallant. We work that system. Super interesting. I can tell about my own child. Um, he had a lot of night enuresis, and he's 6. So this he should, yes, I know he's a boy, and I'm like, it's his airway and all this different stuff, and I'm gonna wait for the palate expander, and I work Gallant, but it was fine. It I did a protocol for him uh out of the SIPS reflex. I actually can't even remember what it was, and he hasn't wet the bed since. So it wasn't necessarily the physical, but there was still something with the in the energetic side that I wasn't getting, or that, and I had been working it since he was born. This kid is, so in theory, so integrated on his reflexes, but there was something I still wasn't getting. And I didn't know that protocol. So for a while, I mean, I was hitting the SIPs like, so I would do, what's the stress, and my goodness. And I thought, okay, is it me? Is it the mother? Is it sometimes you can't work on your own kids, or I can't work on my own kid. Um, but it was after we did the linking of, I believe it was the primitive and postural. It was just his whole system needed the download. It wasn't just that one reflex. It was his There was a lot of different things that needed to come into play that Ian linked together with the protocol. Um, so that was an aha moment for me in that aspect. Okay, so as we're like talking about, does Gallant, I don't know. Okay, so when we work with, I could talk about every reflex for like an hour or to 2 hours. So we can move on really, really fast, but Gallant is a really, really big one. It is also huge with cortisol drain and regulation. So um, when we work the Gallant reflex, so this is what's something that you can do actively. So if it comes up, you can stimulate down the side of the spine to see if that's even active, or does the body really need it, or what's happening with it. And you can do a self Gallant. You can go into it. So you bring your hip up and shoulder down, and so you get really squishy here, and you do an isometric and you hold that. Yeah. And so if your head goes with it like this, it shows that your body still needs head righting. So you might have to work on the primitive or the postural reflexes, because your body didn't right itself. It didn't keep that horizontal gaze. And so we know that there's pieces of it that we still need to mature out. And you can go down your other side. So, and one side a lot of times feels better than the other. And so we go into the pattern, and then we can even go out of the pattern, because it needs to know the extension side of it too. So extension and flexion. This is really big for cortisol drain. So if you get into a stress state, or you've just ran trauma protocol, or like they just had some big emotional releases, and that cortisol is still in the system, I will sit there and I will work Gallant. And so it helps to ground them. They feel that embrace, and it's draining all of I call it the stress juice for people. So they know, and they get both the energetic release, but then also they get the physical release too that they might need. Kind of like the foot pad sensors. I'll do foot pad sensors a lot. And then I'll do Gallant input as well, or I show them how to do it. Another, has anything come up for you guys, or how have you guys used it right now? Or do you just want me to keep going through?
So I was asking about the bladder meridian thing because I had a new client yesterday who is 11 and bedwetting. And so spinal Galant is an obvious place to start. But when I was challenging it, one of the things that was really coming up was separation issues from the mother. And I had to stop and be like, oh, right, that's what that does, right? That's about birthing and becoming a separate person.
Mhm.
And I really felt like it's not the normal way I would think about working with that reflex, but it felt like it opened up the real issue right?
Mhm.
Where it's like, yeah, the reflex being unintegrated is a problem, but it's a sign that there's an issue with this emotional thing. And so we were able to then work with it. So I haven't
Yeah.
checked back with the family yet. But I'm curious about it because I thought it was a really interesting doorway.
Yeah. No, that's that was actually one of Jack's issues too. And that's why I was all of a sudden like, that's my son. I actually got scared. I was like, because I was doing I mean, I'm a practitioner and I was leaving and I was going. And when he was young, I left. And so, and I know that it was actually, there was a switching that happened and I pulled that out. And so there was this disconnect and there absolutely was. It's a very big bonding piece. And actually, the and I didn't link this until right now. Seriously, in infancy, you the primary motor response, so the very primary motor area for galant. So typically we can go down the spine, but there's also it's called the primary motor area, um, and that is an area that should only happen within the first 0 to 4 months of life, and then it matures out into a different pattern, and how you can stimulate the reflex differently. And it's like rib 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you just even go into an infant and you come right here, the bottom and the hips will go whoop into this galant pattern. So like in a newborn, you flip them over on their tummy and you can go down the side of their spine or just brushing the side, like kind of that rib 7, 8, and their bottom will go whoop and it should go whoop. And so, and like it should do this lateral flexion on each side. This is a bonding point, but it, again, you look at it through energy work. That's stomach, that's liver meridian. I guess that's like the lymphatic points when you think about touch for health. And so who am I? That's bonding. This is where oxytocin is released. And so we will, and a bonding piece. We teach mothers to help them bond to their child, to hold right here, but at the same time, it's the primary motor response of where galant is. And so there's so many different layers. You think you're touching in one area and you're like, wait a second, that's going to be impacting in a completely different area. But yeah, and that's probably one of the hardest challenges, well, to talk to parents, is sometimes when they think it's just physical and they don't realize that there's such a deep emotional spot that can be such a hard topic to chat with them about, is that there is emotion that comes with this. And yeah, that happened today during one of my sessions, but yeah. Okay. I need to say more than just the galant reflex, even though it's a really, really good one. um, Perez. Okay, so ribs 5, 6, 7 are bonding points. Yeah, yeah, yep. And so what I've found, and so how Dr. Moskotova even explains that. So yeah, ribs 5 and 6, 7, 8, that's where that primary response is. And then she explains it in the birthing class. Okay, that when a mother holds her child for the first time, so she has this moro 3, this deep bonding that is happening. So you're helping to breath regulation and everything with this moro. Then after that, you look at your child, you bring your child back, and it's innate. Most of the time, it's very, very innate. And you embrace here, and it's this hold. And most of the times moms are like, yeah, I got to do that. It's a part of, they don't even realize that they're doing it during this kangaroo care, but they want to they look back and they see, what did I just create? What does my child look like? And they naturally put their hands there. And oxytocin is also released in the mother to help with breast milk production. It's not just the bonding for the child to its mother, but the mother to the child, and helps with that breast milk production. And then, depending on how you're taught to to breastfeed. Even the infant, I found this out with my own kid. This was my aha motherhood moment. But when a child is breastfeeding, and their arms are free, they will wrap around to the side of their mom's points right here. And so it's even a time of bonding back to the mom each time there's a feeding that will happen. So it's kind of cool how it all works. Okay. Oh, okay. So what's a reflex that you guys want to talk about? Because I can talk about a lot of them. Here, let me show you. Oh, go for it.
Sorry. One for me came up today with a client was, I think it's the tensor reflex under equilibrium. We were doing the nervous system blueprint for her. She's got lots of stuff and her whole body's like tense, right? And that one came up. So I held the points and stuff for her, but is there movements that would be beneficial as well? I think it's under the equilibrium and proprioception or something.
You know what? That one, I think a big one, and I kind of chatted with this one in class, but embracing squeeze is absolutely huge. So you think about equilibrium, and that's a piece of your Moro, and also understanding where you're at in space. And embracing squeeze, you can do it to yourself, or you can do it to your client or to a loved one, and it also releases human growth hormones and oxytocin when it is produced. But the easiest way, I kind of say you hold proper, so you're holding every limb like this in a circular, so it's circumferential pressure. And since I'm just doing it to myself, I can only do this one. But what you're doing is this with your hands like this, when your fingers are tight, this is not good. This is not inviting. This is demanding. And so you have your fingers just a little bit apart. This is more inviting. And you think you embrace, and you think skin, muscle, bone. And so you go deeper, 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 deeper. And so what you're doing is you are helping to regulate the nervous system through the skin receptors. And that will help to calm that whole that tensor system down. Even like people that have that deep core tendon guard response, that will help. So they can do that to themselves. Was it a child, or?
No, it's in a woman, 52.
She's 52. Yeah, I mean that one, and this is bond. This is another bond. This is bonding to self, as well. And so you're just holding here. If there's someone that comes on my table and I've never worked on them, I'm not just going to like go in and start working on them, because who wants to? That's not okay. Most of the time I'll hold and just start holding here, and it's 7 to 14 seconds. And if you have a person that has like if you're working with like a special needs like trisomy 21 or 18 or cerebral palsy, it's longer, because it takes longer for the nervous system to understand what's happening. And then you just slowly work up the whole arm. And it feels it feels very, very different if you do it to your one side and then you don't, or
and you should do both sides, correct?
Yep, you can do both sides. You can do legs, and you can do awesome. You can come in there and you can do legs. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I mean, I don't know where most people, I a lot of times think that certain clients will kind of float to you, you're like, why is everybody coming in with this or this? It just seems like there's certain clientele that are just drawn to you, or it's just tons of people that are all coming up with similar diagnoses, or just same stress. With one of the reflexes that I really like to just kind of assess and kind of see where they're at is hands grasping. And I've started to do that even before and after like SIP sessions, specifically, and hands grasp. So right here is the sensory stimulus. And so if you do that, so I talked about primary motor patterns. On this side, on thumb side, this is where it is for an infant. This is it's thumb side for an infant. For adults, it's more pinky side. Just FYI. But if you come in here and you just ask them, so if they're laying on your table, you ask them to hold. Let me turn this way. You ask them to hold and you pull. They should tighten just a little bit. Their brainstem should say, "Oh, I need to go with you." So you'll feel that, you'll feel them tighten up. And then if you push down into them, if you go in reverse, so if you're here to tighten, and then if you roll back this way, so my hands look like this, so I'll come here, and that will give them the intention that they should tighten into me. And if I come here and down, it should that they should relax, and they should not want to have this tight hands grasp to me. Most of the time, if I have people that are in states of shock, they're either not letting go, or they have no idea that they should even hold on. And it kind of tells me, oh my, we have work to do. There is major stress within this system. And from that trauma stress state that we need to work in. So at the end of a session, I'll then have them hold. And is it better? One of my guys yesterday, I was had just seen him for the first time, and stress happened years ago, and I asked him to hold, and he would not let go of me. Like, it was like, okay, we can bring it down. The body's pretty much telling me it's more longer. I need more of this input. And so I know that for me, it was just an assessment at that time. So I needed to work other pieces of his body in order to calm down, for him to understand that every reflex, it's regulation. I should be able to go into the pattern and out of the pattern easily. I shouldn't be locked into it. My hands shouldn't be like this constantly, or here in a high cortisol stage of stress. A lot of people are walking around like this. Or we talked about core tendon guard. You can see them when they walk in, how they hold their body. If their palms are facing away from them, they're in core tendon guard. They're in a protective state. Their lats are turned on, so they're here. And I went blurry. And well, and they will turn on here, and what you need to do is, okay, what's going on here? How do we need to get these lats out? But that's their core tendon guard that has turned on to try to keep their vital organs, to keep everything tight, because they want to be in this protective state. So even just seeing how they're walking in, there are lots of times they're walking in with reflexes that are turned on and active, trying to keep them just moving forward in life, but they're doing it in a way that's not, it doesn't give them freedom of movement. Hi guys. Do you want, has anything else come up in balances, or do you want me to talk about another one?
I would love to hear about Moreau, and also the one that predates it, in utero.
Your fear
Which
paralysis.
Yeah. I haven't worked with it yet, but I have a couple, well, I have like one kid in specific is like 2 or 3. She may have turned 3. That judging by the other SIPS work I've done, I'm fairly certain that those are going to be an issue. So
Yeah. No, absolutely. I have some of my friends that have like snuck into the room, so they're gonna probably get to help. So these are my reflex people that are coming in. So Moro. So Ian only describes Moro 1 and Moro 2, but in class I talked, oh, there's a Moro 3, and we talk about that as bonding. But your Moro should integrate within the first few minutes of life. It is what helps with breath regulation. So when an infant comes out of the womb, they should be going, their head comes back into this extension. So they're typically born with head down. They do this rotation, and then they come up and they move out. So it's 17 degrees, 13 degrees, 17. We're going to say at least 17. 13 might, because it does have to do with the degree of movement, because here you're not eliciting the Moro. So it goes back into this extension. They fill their lungs for the very first time full of air. So they're pushing all that amniotic fluid out, and they're taking this huge breath of air for the very first time. And then their brain then tells them, okay, that's all the air that I can consume. So I'm coming from this huge, deep inhalation, and then I do this huge exhalation. Okay. And then, so this goes from Moro 1 to Moro 2. And then Moro 3 is where we should embrace. That's when we should be placed on our mother. And then our mother helps us to regulate that breathing of inhalation and exhalation. What can happen? And okay, so if you're C-section, Moro is also elicited with vestibular movement of 12 inches. So when the doctor pulls infant out, the Moro is also initiated. That also happens when they drop. Now, the doctor might not do that purposefully. I don't know if they've ever been trained like that, but that also turns the Moro reflex on. What happens though, a lot of times you think about these infants and anybody, it doesn't have to be infants. It's an adult. It's somebody that was intubated, somebody that they swallowed meconium. They weren't breathing. Their APGARs were very, very poor. Their Moro wasn't happening. Their Moro wasn't turning on. And so it's stuck. And so a lot of times the Moro reflex can be stuck and kind of get in the way of just being that freedom of movement, because they didn't get that first good breath of life. And Moro is what also helps to close the holes in the heart. It's that first breath of life that closes the holes, so you don't have those septal defects. Moro is also elicited through like the visual, auditory, those sensory inputs. There are some courses that teach that fear paralysis is the one that is elicited through auditory or visual. There's teachers teach different, or they have different theories, and sometimes that's the division of this is why we separate, and the method is this is why we don't use your method, or different things that I've just kind of noticed in some of the literature and how they teach. There's nuances to everything, but when I work with a child that has like cerebral palsy and a door shuts and they go, they're eliciting their Moro, because that auditory sense, or that auditory sense then stimulated their Moro reflex. So fear paralysis, on the other hand, okay, well, here, okay, so then fear paralysis is lower, and as far as in development of in utero, so that there should be this division between, like I've been taught, like between week 7 and 8, because at that time you are pretty much just brainstem. You are spinal. You are spinal. You don't have the auditory. You don't have the visual. Those things have not been created yet, but you do still have this protective responses. Your fear paralysis is where you are coming in, and I do it through a tap, but what happens is in fear paralysis, you go back and you come up onto your toes. I'm going to get blurred out again. Let me see if I can't switch this. Okay. I'm going to try to change my angle so you guys can see this a little bit better. Oh, and this is what happened in class too. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Let me see if I can't like put it up high. Maybe. And it's really, really dark. But your fear paralysis, this happens. So and it also happens with Moro, where Moro is like this, where you come back here, 1, 2, and then 3. Okay. Fear paralysis is where you just step back. Okay. And what happens is your feet go up. And so you get this heightened gastroc, you go up onto your toes, your tendon guard response, everything kicks in here. So you still have, you think, hey, that's core tendon guard. It is. It absolutely is. One thing feeds into the next. But those are protective. But what happens with fear paralysis is your heart rate drops, your breathing stops. You're trying to play dead. So that's that protective reasoning. In Moro, you are getting ready. It's a higher brain level. And so what happens is you go up through, you're hitting through the limbic brain, and you have the ability to, so then this is where Strauss comes in, where you have the ability to reason. What am I going to do? Is it appropriate to fight? Is it appropriate? So it freezes. So it stops. Am I going to fight? Am I going to run away? Or, hey, that was just a stick, not a snake in the road, and I can move forward, but you're not going to run away from it. You can think through what needs to happen. I don't know if you've ever, well, with a lot of the different violence that happens, they have, I don't know, that when they interview some of these people that have maybe done different shooting sprees and different things like that, they have, a lot of times they don't know what they've done. And because they weren't thinking, they were in Moro, and they were fighting. They had no idea. They were not in executive functioning. They were at brainstem, and they literally have no idea what has happened. And that's why sometimes even when a stress happens, like at a crime scene or something like that, what I think they've even done studies of what actually happens in the details. People might not give all of the same details depending on where their reflex, what their brain is doing for them. Are they grounded? Are they into their body? They're the ones that can give the better details. Some people have no idea what has happened. They don't know where they went or how they got there. They just went in this survival state. They might give a few details, but it's very, very different memory than from what somebody else might have given. that would be say, hey, your Moro is still really active. Anyway, those, yeah, those are big ones. And I will say most of the time people, there's a lot of people that have them. I mean, I look and I'm like, you might be okay, but then when you get into a situation that you get triggered, it's what's your compensatory strategy? You know, like we talk about in SIPS 5, you know, when you're looking at when you go under a state of stress, you think about what your cognitive or what your emotional response is. Do you intellectualize everything? Do you become a victim? That whole chart. There's also, I look about, okay, what's happening with your reflexive patterns? What you go into to protect you, to keep you safe. And it's either that fear paralysis or that Moro.
Jodi, there was a question about whether it's important to do something to repattern a reflex after doing SIPs on it. And I've given the in SIPs class answer, but I would love to hear your in practice answer.
My answer with it all. Okay, I'm gonna give the Alexis answer. How do you like that? It's whatever the body comes up with, right? No. But I think it's good because I like everything, it anchors in. You know, but is it necessary to take reflex coursework? No, but if you really want to, a really great I could talk to you about a couple of really great basic courses to just gain a deeper knowledge base, so you know what you might be doing at a deeper knowledge level. But what I found is, well, honestly, I just naturally start anchoring the kids in from what we've learned. I don't know if it's necessary or not. Most of the time I do, just because I guess that's my wheelhouse. I'll either, so like when I work with, I usually have a client for an hour, and we might do some SIPs, or we might do some different energy work. Okay, well, actually, well, yeah. Okay, so we'll do some different energy work, and then I'll anchor. How am I going to anchor? What in my session showed me what I need to do? So lots of times it's even just, I need to put you back into your body. So I'm going to do embracing squeeze. You are still here. You just have some new knowledge that you are now processing, and you are now grounding. I can do some of the foot reflexes. I love, and I've taught so many people in the reflexive world and some of my friends, the foot pad sensor, you know, how to do those. The gate points, I don't know, what that we learn in Touch for Health. Those are huge to reorient and reset the body so they feel better. Because even when you do SIPs or when you do reflex work, a lot of times you disorient the body when they're coming off of a table. And so going back and doing footwork is very huge. Actually, this is really silly. Can I show you, was foot tendon guard in our reflexes? If for the feet? I don't know. Hang on. I don't think it was. We had plantar, and I think we had Babinski. Okay. No, okay. No, that's okay. That's okay. Actually, one huge piece that to teach, I'm just trying to think, man, what's something that I can just kind of tell you, and kind of what's something that any client can do if reflexes comes up, is six-ended star. Six-ended star is, it's not in here as a reflex, but actually core star, that we talk, what class do we talk about core star in? I know it comes up in virus. Is it 8?
It's SIPs 8.
It's in SIPS 8. But from that physical perspective, so the way that I describe six-ended star, it's considered an archetype movement. So it's like the very, very, it's the movement pattern even before the reflexes. It's what anchors us and puts us together. As we're like single cells, or actually when we're just an egg, when we're one single cell. This is my fun fact. So when they're doing IVF and they're doing egg retrievals, they grade the egg on ABC. I don't know if there's a D, but what they're doing is it's on the vibrancy, the flexion and the extension. It's they're one egg. That's what they're doing. This is the movement. This movement is the foundation and the basis for all reflex patterns. And you can go deep into it, but just doing it actively. Like you can break up the whole reflex pattern and you can go dive deep into it, but it's very, 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 very simple. And I'm like, hey, and Dr. Moskatova actually says core star, and that made me think. I was like, that actually comes, that's an energy term. But when you do six-ended star, what you're doing is, so the first two, so you have your center. So we're our CV8 that we know of, okay? And then, so here's the center. And then we have, is this K23? Sorry, yeah, okay. This is the second link. Okay, third link is sacrum. Fourth, fifth. Wow. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hello.
I did the same thing.
So
I did the same thing teaching.
2. My friend is here who actually teaches this course on it and has an entire day worth of six-ended star.
This is a core.
So core 1.
This is 1. Look at.
Oh, so you're 1, and then you get all this extension all the way up into here. Here's 1, 2, then 3, 4, 5, 6. This, awesome. These points that we know of, so like lung 1, this is also limb buds. This is where our nervous system tissue comes out and creates our arm. So these are huge anchors. So everything, so we think core star, it's not our extremities, it's our trunk and our core. Our extremities are just extras. Okay. So when the movement pattern that you can do, like, what can I do? How do I hold this? You start an extension. So you're here. Hopefully you guys can see me. So you're your star. So Summer's going to help me here. It's like you're pushing in 3 dimensions. Okay. So you're pushing up and out, down to the ground, and your sacrum is even pushing out. So this is full extension. And then you pull your entire core into you and you come into a ball. And then you move back out.
Chin at neutral.
Chin at neutral, because you don't want to elicit moro. So you see how if people do, so hey, that's our next session, so there's so many things so many different reflex patterns that we do to compensate in order to get us through life. But I give six-ended star to a lot of people, and you can do it 3 times, you can do it 6 times, but you look, okay, so in yoga, is that sun salutation? No. What's the reflex pattern?
I mean, it's kind of mountain.
It's mountain?
Kind of mountain pose.
Okay, see? Okay. Anyway, but there's a lot of things, but that one right there is huge to open up diaphragm, to engage. I am open for learning. I am open for growth and development. People come in here, they could come protected. They're not learning. They're in survival mode. There's reasons why people are seeking us out. Most people don't come because they're on top of the world. Something is keeping them in a protective state. Yeah, so that, and then you can even add affirmations. So that might come up in your SIP sessions. I am open to learning new things. If they have issues with bonding to self, I love myself. You know, so there are different affirmations that you can give that come up, and there's different movements. You don't necessarily have to go in and do, okay, now I have to figure out Babinski came up, I need to do Babinski. If Babinski comes up, tell them to go walk, you know, and are they feeling the earth differently? Because the body, what I've even, I mean, you guys see that in with SIPs, the body's going to release what it's going to. It might not release everything you want it to. I guess this is for me. And how SIPs has worked in my life and as a practitioner, it's the body's only going to open up so much, and then you're going to have to come back to it at a new level, and it's a spiral, hopefully up, not down. We're improving a person's life. Reverse entropy. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Jodi, could you just point out those points 5 and 6 on the 6-sided star for me?
Oh, yes, hip. Is it liver 11? Here. Those are trauma points. Sorry. And this is all the spleen 18. Okay. So these are my aha moments that I get, like when I'm sitting in class and I'm like, those are the reflexive points. Okay. So, when during that trauma protocol in SIPS 8, we're hitting, is it glabellum? And it says to potentially it's spleen 18 and you can hit 11. This is 6-ended star, and we have protected ourselves down and in, and they are in a stress state. So spleen meridian, liver meridian, all of that is down and in. So it's kind of fun how it totally works together, and I love it all. But
Thanks.
yeah, no, it's good work. It's good stuff. What's really fun is when you've done BAP, if you've done BAP, you know, putting in like the what is it, the continuous, or when you're just the continuous record mode, you can do that to an infant. So I work with anywhere from infancy to older, and let the kid crawl around and see what movement pattern needs to be released. I might see that the pelvis is stuck, and like their STNR, they look, so STNR is here, STNR3 is here, but their sacrum is still tucked down, and they're somehow getting around. But I can see, okay, why is that sacrum stuck? And so I can do it through a BAP, or I can, you know, let the body move how it's going to, do SIPS work, and then let them see how they're crawling around. And it's really fun to see what reflexes come into play with it. So many of these reflexive movements shift the sacrum, because it's a piece of our core. It's step one. It is our core. It's center. It's right up. It's the front side of CV8, and most of the time there'll be pieces there.
Speaking of that, you mentioned doing foot pads and gates for people at the end of balances, especially if you do reflex work. When you reset foot pads, do you do it like we do in BAP? Do you have another? Okay.
No, I love it. And and the reason why I've taught even my reflex friends the foot pad sensor work is because, you know, we work with these clients 2 to 3 hours at a time, and it has completely shifted their visual perception, their understanding of where they're at in space. And then they come down and they say, whoa, what did you just do to me? That foot pad sensors, that is probably one of the biggest, it was a huge aha, even for some of my reflex friends, is with like family members of what can we do, do the foot pad sensors, when we're doing the reflex work. Anything else?
I have another wee query.
Yeah.
More. I mean, we kind of see it in newborn babies and that. But I'm kind of curious how it plays out in adults that haven't had it integrated. Like, what do you see clinically with, like the more mature adult in comparison to the baby?
As far as like what happens when their reflexes aren't integrated, like when an adult's reflexes aren't integrated,
Yeah, kind of what you see in your clinic and in the session.
Yeah. So we were just chatting with one. So sometimes it can come out very well, they seem very ADHD. So we have the ADHD brain where they are going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. So there's the mothers that don't get anything done. They forget the laundry that has been in the washing machine and now they have to wash it again. They're just flighty. They're going from one thing to the next. They are not grounding. They do not have their grounding reflexes. They are running on their cortisol and their adrenaline. So do they not have their Galant and their Perez reflexes that are supposed to be pumping that cortisol out and helping them to be we say a flexible spine is a flexible mind. If they are caught and they don't have lateral spine flexion, or they don't have this anterior posterior, they don't have the pull and movement with Perez, they don't know where their midline is, they go rigid. And so then they're very rigid in thought, they're rigid in processing. That's when they have to have things, they hyper control. We have to do it this way because they don't want to elicit their Moro. They don't want to be caught off guard, or they don't want to elicit their fear paralysis response. So if I control everything in my life, then, well, and that's the spectrum. So they're rigid, they don't move. So they move as a block. They are in this, you talk about where they're, when I say they go up on their toes, and I mean, they're in fear paralysis. The entire world is very fearful for them, and they're very, very rigid. In order for them to move, they have to know and sequence absolutely everything. With neurotypical adults, I mean, I think I can find something wrong with everyone, just like everybody needs a SIP session. I tell people, I'm like, I can be a really bad practitioner. I can take your money. No, I'm but everybody needs, I know, come hang out. But like everybody needs work done. We all need to say, what is it? And how do I need to feel more grounded? There are some people that are completely disconnected from their body. Mark, I was teaching a mom how to hug her son today. Because she had no idea how to bond. So I literally was trying to help show here, you have to hug him here, and you embrace him and you pull him down. You pull him down to the ground. You are grounding him. But she's so flighty up here. She can't plan a family vacation, and she's homeschooling. I mean, she's so dysregulated. It's coming out in an emotional state for her. And then you see the fallout of what's happening for her kids. Like we don't even know how to hug, but that's Moro, and so, or have you ever had like the people you go in and try to give them a hug and they just like stand there, they like, or they don't hug back? It's because they can get through life and like, I don't like to be touched. Well, that's probably pieces of Moro. There's different things that are happening of the reasons why they don't want to be. They can deal with it, but their nervous system has the ability to regulate and to kind of bring them back, or they are the ones that have to do the self-care and what's something that's going to get me back to feeling who I am. Yeah, they have splinter skills. yeah, but we all have stuff. We all can improve. Or I mean, stuff happens to us all the time. I tell clients that I would love to put them in a climate controlled bubble, like because stuff happens, stress happens, but it's how do we respond to the stress? We can use this, we can use those reflexes, you know, the protective reflexes, and then we come back out of it. What we need, it's how do we respond, and then can we come back down to this regulated state? But some can't. So it's, yeah, it's really fun to people watch, right? Like I love people watching. I'm like, they need a lot of work.
You need a hug.
You need a hug. Somebody needs to teach you how to hug. It's so sad. I have to go back tomorrow and teach this lady how to hug.
And I get to surprise hug her.
Yeah. And she gets to surprise hug her and try it. So because they have a young child that has Down syndrome. So trisomy 21. And so we're working together on the child. So this child that has Down syndrome, we are doing many hours of work to help in her development. But we've seen the fallout of what has happened, you know. So you have a hyper stressed mom that's not doing enough. You see a kid that the older son that he's floating. He doesn't know who he has, no body. He doesn't know where he's at, who he is, where he fits into family. And so like I did SIPS work on him, and the first switching came up immediately for him, and I didn't even ask. And I did his just held the switching points. You know, sometimes we are as practitioners, we just know we need to hold a little bit longer, or there's something in this point. There's something that needs to come out in this point. He just sat there. He's like, I remember her reveal party. It was a teal cake, and I thought for sure she was gonna be, I was gonna have a boy. I was gonna have a brother. And then I had a sister. I hate sisters. You know, so like I'm like, oh, you had a major, you have been holding, and he's 10. And so I'm like, and he was 2. I was like, you've been holding this for a really, really long time. So I mean, just holding those points, and then bonding came up, you know. And so then you have this mom that has no idea. She feels like she's not doing enough. Like it's just like the whole family is just in chaos. And so yeah, so we're gonna teach them how to hug tomorrow. Sometimes they don't need SIPS work, they just need, or reflex work. They just need to learn.
Don't pretend we won't be holding points.
I mean, we'll be holding points. I know, you know, sometimes. And one that I've added, because the GB15 is a bonding point too on the head, right? So it's like, where's GB15? I need it's back here. So now when somebody comes in, I'll hug them, and I might I might do a little bit extra, you know. So its intention is a lot, and I absolutely love it. And then you have people, yeah, it's great. I got through like 2 reflexes, but like I am so happy to I can put my email in the chat. And if you have like a question about, here, I'm going to do it right now. Like, what is this reflex? Or tell me more about this, or why link this. I've started to tell people that when I do SIPS work, and like, I'm just creating this picture of this big dot to dot, and and I don't know what we're going to create or what coloring page we're going to create, but it's going to be a good one, and it's going to be a story, and we're going to figure it out. But just trying to figure out how all of these points work together.
I love that. I'm going to steal that.
You totally can. I don't know.
That's so
some
cute.
days it takes corn, some days it's I don't know. We've run off the page, or I'm like, I've got nothing.
Yeah. There's definitely points in it though, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
Trina was asking about gallbladder 15. You said that was a bonding point?
Isn't that bonding? I looked it up. No, it's gallbladder 6. was gallbladder 15. Where's gallbladder 6, guys? Where's gallbladder 6? 1, 2. It's back here on the ear somewhere. I think that's why I just hold the whole ear. Where's it at?
I don't have that book here.
I'm gonna look it up on my handy dandy phone. Wow. You guys probably could find it faster than I could, or not. I got nothing. GB6 is acupressure point. Okay.
It's on that straight line after GB4, going straight back to the ear, sort of near the bit lower.
Here. Yeah.
Well, a bit hairy, but
This, I don't think this picture shows it well. This one has it way up here. But that, yeah, I don't like that one. Oh, I see.
Oh,
Here. This one has a like a little bit higher than like triple heater 21. But hug, hold the ear. Just hold right here and hug them. No, I'm kidding. but oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Do
When you hug your
people have
kid
any-
and put your hand on their head too, it's like the same. It's that.
Mhm.
that
It is. And then you go to heart. So you put their head right here, their heart to heart. And then you do your in utero sway. There's so many things that you can do with bonding. Oh my goodness. I love it. I used to be scared of it, but then that means that I needed to work on it myself. So usually when you're scared of something, you got to figure it out for yourself, right? A changed person changes people, right? Okay. Let's see. What else? Are you guys? There's so many good things. I don't know. Where are you guys at with it? Do you want more? Or are you guys having to go?
I'm having to pack up in another 5 minutes. After like you find some reflex points, some primitive ones, and you correct them through SIPS points, do you find they pop back up again, or the one balance is enough to sustain that integration?
I will go back through. Well, honestly, I've been toying with the reflex points for like, well, just like the protocols, like so since the class just a couple weeks ago, but I do sometimes. Honestly, a lot of times those primitive reflexes can be so stuck. So you think about like a child that has autism, you know, like you don't know what's creating the stress. Is it a piece of that diet and the nutrition, or the home environment, or what is it, you know? But sometimes I will go into it, but something else opens up. So I'll keep working the reflex pattern, but most of the time I'm getting something else within the SIPS world and the SIPS points that I need to keep working on. I mean, even like for my son, like, I mean, good night. How long have I been working on him? And it had nothing to do with his gallant. It all had to do with how the entire nervous system was linking together, because it was just, it was the protocol, it was just the integration of primitive and postural reflexes. It was just that simple, of just linking the vestibular, the cerebellum. I mean, just going through this chart and working on it. It had really had nothing to do with needing to work gallant. He's a really good dancer because of it, though. I was like, I've been working his hips for so long. I'm like, come on, kid. No, but anyway.
It seems like everyone's kind of had to leave or does have to in the next few minutes. Are there any last minute burning questions here before we're wrapping up from those who remain?
Good.
No.
This
Thanks
was,
guys for letting me talk.
Sorry, Valerie.
I just said this was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad I could
Yes,
share.
thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Jodi, for agreeing to do this and for sharing all of your wisdom. And thank you to Jodi's friend for
Yeah.
chipping
Seriously,
in from
she-
off
I'm like
camera.
laughing. She teaches the class and I'm like, this is great. I've got the instructor watching me talk. I'm like, this is not okay. There's actually a couple instructors down here. I was like, guys, no, anyway, but it's a good family. It's good.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for sharing your email as well. If people have questions about anything that we
Yeah.
didn't get to cover tonight.
Yeah.
And everyone, have a great evening.
Thanks.